Welcome to Cycle Breakers and Moneymakers, a podcast for women of color and first gen who are breaking generational cycles and glass ceilings by going places no one before them has ever gone. I'm your host, leadership coach, and eldest daughter of immigrants, Mariela Delamora. I left a 16-year marketing career to create a multiple six-figure-a-year coaching business as a single mom. Each week, you'll learn how to build unshakable self-trust, become in demand, lead with confidence, and make more money by being more of who you are. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to have this conversation. We had a little bit of just talking about this before going live around your story when you joined Reclamation, like who you were, the expertise that you had, but also what happened, because you had a whole story of from when you started your business to sort of, having a baby and then all these things that you had to almost like recover from. But what remained constant throughout was thought leadership and then what you've been able to do since. So I'm really excited to just kind of have you tell your story of what you were able to create within the mastermind and also like what you brought in from the beginning so that people can kind of understand like, okay, if this is where you are, this is what rebuilding like your thought leadership, your platform, all the things that you had to do, what that can look like. So with that, I would just love if you just introduce yourself to us.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Mariana Peña. I'm a Mexican living in the Netherlands. I'm an instructional designer and an IP consultant. And I take a breath because it can feel a little bit daunting to reclaim that, but I'm going to say that. So I'm an instructional designer and an IP consultant for revolutionary experts that want to change the world one online program at a time.
Yes. And it's interesting because like there's so much around the work that you do that like so many people need it, but don't necessarily know, or they may be solving it in different ways. And so much of your work is really like understanding this is what you've tried, this is what you're doing, and really building the relationship from understanding your person so deeply, which is also like where I think thought leadership matters, but also understanding your person, matters a lot too. And just knowing like what their journey has been up until the point that they find you. So when you and I spoke in December, like when we opened the doors, I think we had a conversation like the very beginning of December. You and I knew each other already. Like I remember following you from, I think before I ever had a client, I think 2019.
Yeah.
Like,
you didn't have a business then.
And so tell me a little bit about, like, I think, when we had this conversation, I was like, I'm so excited to talk to you because I feel like I've always been like a fan of like your work and just knowing you. So tell me a little bit about what had happened up until that point, like when we had the conversation in December about joining Reclamation, where you were and what you were looking for.
I need to give a little bit of context of the type of buyer that I am so that people understand where I'm coming from. Because I'm a service provider and I am a very rational person, I also buy very rationally. Like I don't ever get FOMO, ever. The whole like deadlines, this is the last spot, like that doesn't work on me. And at that point in December, I had in my head the idea that I wanted to come back January 2024 to my business. And I knew that I had an offer that was tested and I had very solid results to show up for that offer. I had a very good pricing point. I had incredible testimonials. So I had like, as far as the skills, it was there. And I also had a lack of self-trust. I was at a point where I had to step away from my business because I had a very tough pregnancy. I had a very tough postpartum depression that took me away for a solid year and a half, which translated into online business years is like an era, especially during pandemic years, COVID years, like everything happened so quickly and market changed so quickly. So I knew in my head that the level of mastery in my skill was not going to be enough if I wanted to come back and get back to my best baseline that I used to have. Mm-hmm. My trust was not there. My brain was kind of working around that December. And what I knew was I need two things. I need to be in a room where people believe in the work that I do. I don't need them to like me. We don't have to be friends, but I need to be in a room where preferably people of color, believe in the importance and the relevance of the work that I do as a service provider. Because if they are going to start pushing me to change things, I didn't have time for that. And the second thing was the only way that I'm going to join a group setting is if I can see that the host of that group has stayed consistent throughout the years. So by saying those two things, I already reduced the entire market offer
Yeah.
to a very, very small percentage.
Yeah.
You know how many people bloomed and they were at the top of everything in 2021, and then they disappeared by 2023.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to have that because I wanted someone along with me who could understand the fact that I needed to relearn the market behavior. I needed to see if my buyers were going to be operating and vetting me in the same way as back in 2020, 2021, right? I needed that certainty. And truly, there weren't many options, to be honest. When I looked around, there weren't many options. There weren't also options that catered to service providers, because I always end up in rooms where it's every single piece of advice is geared towards coaches.
Yeah.
So I have to transfer that into, I have to do the heavy labor on my own. I was like, I'm not going to pay for that.
Yeah.
But then when you relaunched Reclamation, I was like, and book a call. I don't know if it was the first call.
You were one of the first ones, I remember.
I told you.
Yeah. I think you were, honestly, yeah, I think it was like Kira, and then I talked to you like right afterwards. But you were already you knew me and you told me. And I think this is one thing that I really appreciate is like, you did this, and a lot of my clients will do this. They will tell me how they vetted me, and they'll tell me why they're there, in a way of saying like, listen, this is how I make decisions. I looked at this. I thought about this. I've watched you. I've da 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 da. And obviously that's different for colder leads, which I also had conversations around that. But you were very deliberate about like what you were looking for at the time. And that I really appreciate, because it means that there actually is like a match, because you wouldn't have just joined because there weren't as many like options of what you were looking for. Because I see that as like, I'm speaking very specifically to a certain person, and you just happen to be that person that was looking for that. So again, it's like the overlap of thought leadership and like you knowing exactly what you wanted, which I appreciate.
Yeah. I don't know if it's because of, again, like I see the online world through my lens of a service provider and as a consultant. So I know that whenever we make investments, we have to be very thorough about, okay, so what are the milestones that we're planning to hit during this project? And I see a mastermind as a project. I don't see it as a group of friends. Well, if it comes, it's a byproduct, and that's amazing if I make friends inside it. But for me, whenever I pay for a group offer, it's a project. And I have to be able to see, and I have to be able to map out if my needs are aligned with whatever is happening inside that container, so that I can make that project work for myself. And then I can get something in return.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It's like you were buying and people will have different reasons to buy. So some people are like, I just want the community. And it's like, okay. And other people are like, okay, I see that this is what the person is selling and this is what they're bought in for. But I just remember you saying like, I know my offer, I know my person, but you had a hiatus, and you're just like, if I am in the room that sees my work, I know that I can create any of the results that I want to create. And so I want you to kind of tell us a little bit about like, what has that looked like for you? What were sort of your intentions when you joined? And if there's any like relevant history that you haven't shared around what had happened up until this point, I would love to hear about that.
So when I joined, I think it was the easiest decision I've ever made at that level of investment. And I was really, really hoping that it would be a cohort full of people that I didn't know. That was my wish. Because again, coming back online after a hiatus, I was like, I don't want to surround myself with the same people. I want to expand my pool. I want to expand my network. I want to hear the thoughts and the opinions of people that I've never met before.
Yeah.
However, I must say that for my case, it's a little bit different that for the rest of the cohort. simply because I'm based in Europe.
Mm.
So when you announced that the mastermind was gonna, open doors and kick off with a fabulous retreat in my beautiful
Yeah,
Mexico, I was like, oh,
I
I
know.
cannot make that work.
I know.
I can't make that work for many, many reasons, right?
Yeah.
So then I thought, okay, so now I have to catch up. Now I have to catch up because everybody's going to be with everyone. Bonds are going to be created. Does that mean that I am going to again feel like I'm an outsider, which I already feel like by living in Europe?
Yeah.
So I quickly rinsed that off my head because I was, no, 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 I'm not going to assume anything. So I joined, and I think I was a little bit in your face. I don't know if everyone else in the cohort is gonna feel or like
What do you mean
not
by that?
do that.
In your face?
I was very much in everyone's faces because I was like, this is what I like to talk about. I love talking about curriculum. I love talking about IP, and I
Yeah.
love talking about decolonizing everything. Who is down for a chat?
Yeah. I do remember you doing that to just be like, are you my people or not? Like,
Are you my people or not? Like, are we gonna be able to have a deep conversation, or are we
yes,
just gonna be celebrating wins, like
right.
financial wins? Because I don't,
Yeah,
yeah,
because I
those
think
are
that's like,
important,
hey,
but
if I'm here and I'm going to be getting to know people, like I really want to get to know people. Like, let's not bullshit and talk about niceties. And I remember you sharing something in the platform about like a conversation that you had, and you're just like, so I want you to, yeah, kind of tell us about that, like how the connections were and like the no BS, like the deep connections and like the conversations that you had.
yeah, because I've been talking about decolonization since I started in,
Yeah.
I think, 2019.
Which is wild because I feel like in 2019, that was like talking about another planet. People were like, what? Now I think people get it because I think we've seen enough societally that we understand, like, oh, we are impacted by colonization. But I'm sure this is why I'm like, Mariana is so ahead of her time because you had the audacity to talk about something you believed in when people were like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, no, decolonization, talking about that now. And like, what does it mean to decolonize curriculum? Like, I feel like this is thought leadership where you're just like, am I talking about Mars? And people are like chilling on Earth being like, girl, what are you talking about?
It felt, yeah, back then in 2019, 2020, I was mainly like floating around like very white groups.
Yeah.
And I met wonderful people, but I couldn't have these conversations with them. Right?
Yeah,
I
coaching. I
couldn't
don't know if it
because
was just who we're plugged into, but coaching was hella white. I was just like everywhere. It was just the big hats and like the things, and it's like you just you almost feel like that's the world. And I think there was a point where people are like, "Wait, are there other people of color too?" And we all just started finding each other.
yes. So I entered the chat in
Yes.
Reclamation, basically saying you know, who's gonna get down with me because this is what I want to talk about. And I must say that I wasn't expecting the reaction because people tend to hype each other on chats, but that never leads to a follow-up. Like that never leads to true action in my experience. But this time around was like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I use these frameworks of thoughts. Oh, this is actually part of my work too. I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
are these my people? Is
This
this
isn't
real?
just like pleasantries. Like people are like, "We're about this life too. Do you want to talk
Yes,
about it?"
yes.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to talk to almost everyone, and it's a big cohort. And
Yeah. I was seeing it in
everybody,
everybody's stories. Like it was like call, 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 call. And it was just like all
yeah.
connection call, collaboration call, like across the board. I was just like, okay, this is happening.
And that first round was exclusively selfish for me. It was like I just want to talk about what I want to talk about, and
Yeah.
everybody was like, "Yeah, let's talk about that." So there was not like nothing directly connected to my work in that first round of calls, but I just wanted to connect with people on a deeper level that
Yeah.
wasn't about my personal story because it was still very like fresh and I didn't feel confident enough. And then I remember that I think the first call or the second call of the program, I like gathered myself up and I was like, okay, I need coaching.
Mhm.
And that was a terrifying moment for me because again, like I didn't have the opportunity to mingle with everyone in Mexico. And I just cried my eyes out in that call Because I remember saying, I don't know if this is what I said, but I remember saying,
Mhm.
I need, I told you, I need you to believe in me. I need you to believe in me because I don't believe in myself right now.
Yeah.
And then everybody in the chat were like, we all believe in you. Like, we believe in this work. We know what you're doing. We know what you can do. And that was a turning point for me
Yeah.
because from that moment on, it didn't matter that I live in Europe. It didn't matter that we have 9 hours of difference.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. It just didn't. It has honestly changed my life.
Yeah. Tell me what happened after that, because I remember that phone call and I just that call. And I just remember saying, like, something's going to happen here because for you to bring that, it's almost like you're unburdening it and you're saying, I don't want to carry this. And so this is why I'm bringing it to the group and knowing that this group, you can unburden yourself in that group. And so I think everyone reflecting back and being like, Mariana, like, I just remember the chat. And they're connected to the calls, but I was like, you have to connect. Like, I think the reason we started uploading chats was because of that conversation, because it was blowing up so much. And I was like, Mariana, you have to look at what people said because put this in your belief bank, like refer back to this. Tell me kind of what happened when you said like you kind of let that go there. Like what happened from that point on? How were things from that point on?
So that was February.
Yeah.
In January, I had only recurring clients. In February, after that call, I started daring being myself again. Like I got my red lipstick back on.
I
Uh,
remember you and Carmen were like the red lipstick queens being like, this is like my alter ego is going to come out. And
yes,
then I just saw a shift where you were posting stuff and I was like, okay, like she has entered the chat.
yes,
Yes.
yes. It felt like
Mhm.
that. It felt like again, it was a selfish act, but it was like, I'm just gonna dump this little trauma here on this group call and I'm just gonna go about my day and work on that.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. I started showing up for myself. I started getting more intentional about content creation and I didn't have a specific to-do list
Mhm.
because I came back in January and I gave myself a full year to match my income from last year from
Mhm.
recurring clients. My income last year was exclusively recurring clients.
Yeah.
And I thought, and this is a random number, but this is a number that I set for myself. I thought if I can match that plus a 30%,
Yeah.
and if the majority of that comes from new clients, I'm going to be very happy by the end of 2024.
Yes.
So in February, I was like, there's no rush. Like I can
Yeah.
play around. I can just allow myself space to come back to things
Yeah.
slowly. But it just got like fire. And I started saying like to everyone, I think I'm on fire because
I remember this. Yeah.
and it is just magnetic. When you feel like you're walking in your own skin,
Mhm.
proud of that skin, proud of your brain, and you feel like everyone else is walking beside you. So they're
Mm.
not ahead of you, they're not behind you, they're just here.
I love that.
So if you need like a hug, they're there.
Yeah.
If you look just, the side eye, like, what's this bitch talking about? They're there. Like they're there
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
And that kept me going. And I think I found momentum, to be honest.
Yeah. I remember because you're talking about in February, it was like when you had that conversation and you like unburdened the things you didn't want to carry anymore and everybody held you, right? And it was like, okay, like if I don't have to hold this anymore, then who could I be? I remember and I screenshotted it because I was just like, I'm gonna send this to you because I want you to have it. Like I screenshotted Patty responding to you saying something about like it was like a 5-figure first week of March. And she's like, and it's only 5 days in. And I was like, oh, it's happening. And I felt like it just was like magic from like that point on. And then just the updates and like all of the things. So kind of tell me like what, in terms of like you wanting to hit the goal of repeating last year's income plus 30%, but mostly from new clients. Tell me you don't need to, we're not necessarily mentioning numbers, but like when did you hit that number? And was it primarily from the new clients? Or if there's anything we're skipping over, I want you to kind of tell us like what happened.
Because I wasn't paying attention, that first share that I posted, that was March, I think it was the first week of March. It was the first time that I was like, oh shit, this is
Yeah.
happening. Like, this might work.
Yes.
And it took me by surprise. And
Yeah.
I don't say this out of like humbleness or no, it really took me by surprise
Yeah.
because I was just focused on, getting better, mentally stable, don't slip back into depression symptoms. That was
Yeah.
my focus.
Yeah.
But slowly my brain started working and it was just like a ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when you have a very solid offer that is made potent by self-trust
Yes.
is that it just maximizes everything.
Yeah.
So the first new client that came in, he was a referral.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's very important to say he because before I left for my maternity leave, I only worked with women. So
I didn't know that.
yes,
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's so
Um,
interesting because a lot of the string recently, like we've talked about who they are, and that surprises me that like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah. But you know what is very, very interesting? That this only goes to tell you that when you really sit your ass down and you study your market and you study your avatars, when you study the people that you can help, then you know the language for each person.
Hmm.
And because I am now at a point where I feel very confident in my ability to deliver, in my skills, and the fact that I maybe can count with one hand people who are doing the same thing that I'm doing,
Oh yeah, not the same way.
but not the same way. I am completely chill during sales calls.
Mm-hmm.
I have no pressure whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know how the industry pushes you to close during a sales call?
Oh
Like
yeah.
get the credit card and do it right there. And like, I have
That
never
is
in my
such,
life.
it's such anxious attachment energy. And I feel like that's the opposite of confidence and thought
Yeah.
leadership, where you're
And
just like, listen, yeah, yeah,
I don't believe in scarcity. I really don't.
yeah, yeah,
And to me, this is just colonial tactics.
yeah.
So it would be against like
Hmm.
my ethos to do that.
Yeah.
So
Which reminds me about how values are lived in real life. So when I think about how what rooms do we want to be in? Who do we trust? I don't look at what people say. I think about like, are they actually doing, like, is that reflected in their process? So it's like, if you're talking about decolonization, then you don't want to use like colonial tactics and like strong arming people or catching them in vulnerable like states. So I want to just say I respect
yeah,
that because it's the same reason that I don't make people give me an answer on the call because I'm so confident
yeah,
in how I run them.
yeah. And I always explicitly say during the call, like, listen, this is an investment.
Yeah.
I know this is an investment, right? And I want you to take your time because I know what I can bring to your business. I know
Hmm.
I can double your business, but this is an investment and it has to make sense for you.
Yes.
So these people was like a trickle down effect. Like one came in, he brought the friend, and then the other friend, and then all of a sudden I was in new circles, like in new pockets
Ah.
of industries.
Yes, so it's like your brand reputation, you had like a transference of trust of like, oh my gosh, like you need to meet Mariana, and then they just bring you in.
Yeah.
And
You
that's
need
like,
to know
yeah,
like the type of you need to know this person because you know
yeah,
what you've been trying to do for a year now?
yes,
This is the answer.
that makes sense.
Um and I just honestly I'm still sitting down looking at this and trying to take it all in.
Yeah.
But to give sort of like whomever is listening right now or here with us watching, this would have not be possible without the one-on-one conversations that I had with every single person in the cohort inside the mastermind.
Hmm.
This would not be possible without the space that you create where you can just say, oh, I need coaching, and then show and say, well, actually, I don't really know the question that I want to ask, but I feel like there's something that I need to work through.
Hmm.
I've never experienced that before. You have never pushed me to redesign my offer suite.
Mm.
You have never said something like, maybe like you've been away for a while and maybe we should look at the pricing point. Never.
Mhm.
And you have also been very honest, like, listen, this is an industry that I have zero experience with, but what I can bring and how I can help you is I'm in the circles that you want to plug into. So ask me questions.
Yeah. I was very
And I'll
excited
answer.
for that, where I was like, hey, listen, to whatever degree possible, I can tell you what I think the thoughts are. And I know not all coaches will do that, but I'm just like, whenever I know something or I've observed something, I'm happy to just be like, hey, here's my thoughts about this. Here's my past experience. Here's what I've heard. Here's what I've seen. Because I know that you're solving this problem, that like I am very much like observing the impacts of this problem everywhere. But you just took that. I remember I put a bunch of questions and then I was like, do you want me to answer these questions? I was like, here's what I would think about. And I was like, can I just voice note? And you're like, of course, that's literally how I help my clients is like my clients are verbal processors and I create entire curriculums based on that. So I verbally process that. And you were just like running with it. Like you were selling these intensives, you were selling these course curriculum, like all these things. So you also were like taking that and running with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I've told you this before and I tell this to everyone. Like if you are sitting down right now thinking that wouldn't work for me because I'm a service provider and what I sell is not sexy, like it's not catchy, it's not I sell the most unsexy thing ever in the industry. I sell curriculum.
Yeah. Yeah.
The word is awful. Nobody likes it. Everybody has a very hard negative association with it from our years in schooling.
Yeah.
That's what I sell. I sell curriculum. I sell curriculum for people who have all the ideas at the same time and don't know how to start the Google Doc.
Mhm.
And they get to show up for the call. They don't have to do anything, a single thing. They just have to show up for the call and I do everything in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
So by the time we're done, they can just produce their course.
Mhm.
That is not sexy. It's literally tables of information, but
You made the process sexy.
exactly. That's what I was going to say. Like if you're a service provider and you think like code is not sexy. No, but you can position how is it that your process is going to be very attractive to your target audience. The fact that I tell my people you don't have to type a single letter and your
Yeah,
curriculum is
you're
going to
right. Because I worked with Mariana, you guys. Like, she helped me map out my client results roadmap for reclamation. And I'm telling you, like, you told me I didn't need to do homework, and I still tried to do it. And then I,
yeah.
and so it's like I got to talk, and I was staring at the ceiling because I wanted the flow of thought to come out. And I literally walked away, and it was like an entire process of everything, all the stages that happen in first 30, 60, 90 days, all the processes that happen like at each stage. And it was like, I couldn't believe that came out of like my brain, but the way you organized it. So it was like the process was sexy and everybody in the mastermind was like all over that. So it
Yeah.
showed so much. I feel like you were able to test out kind of rapid fire, like how that was received and being able to go and iterate and quickly go and be like, you already knew it. But I think it was like that it was more almost like quick market validation of like how this process is being received.
Yes. And this is very good that you mentioned this because again, when I came back, I was very clear on I need to understand how the market is behaving right now.
Yeah.
Because these are not new services. I've been offering the same services since I launched my business.
Yes.
I have stuck with curriculum
Yeah.
for all these years. However, I knew back then people were not very self-aware of what neurodiversity is, how ADHD impacts your brain and your capacity to execute.
Again, thought
People
leadership.
didn't have the language to articulate that. So back then for me, it was a little bit hard to say things that I can now say because they felt attacked. They felt like, oh, no, that's not me. I don't have any issues with executive functioning. I
Oh,
can do my thing.
yeah.
Now, fast forward 4 years, when I come back, the market is very self-aware.
Yes.
Entrepreneurs know that having ADHD is their superpower, and it's also one of the things that is hindering specific points of their business.
Yes.
And now I am able to have this conversation openly
Yeah.
in my social media
Yeah.
with people.
Yeah. You know what this makes me realize is that this is often what thought leadership will feel like. It's like you feel like it doesn't make, like you see something, but not everyone sees it, but that doesn't mean it's not there. But what I think then happened was like you didn't change it up. And I think that's important is that sometimes we will think this doesn't make sense because no one else is talking about it, but no one else is talking about it also means that you're seeing an unmet need around neurodiversity and around how we just we're adopting a lot of like very kind of filtered through a very white lens in terms of how we're learning and implementing information. Now, I think the influx of entrepreneurs in 2019, 2020, 2021, there was a lot of diagnosis around like ADHD because people were experiencing the symptoms for the first time in many cases, especially when they came from jobs. So it drew more light to it. And now it's like it was like you never changed your tune, but it's just a different, it's almost like the market caught up.
To it.
And
Yeah.
now it's like there's literally people are like, no, I'm looking for neurodiversity or, friendly approaches and people that I am a verbal processor. I want to be able to come in and do that. So I want just folks that are listening to know that if it feels like it doesn't make sense or you're looking around and you don't see somebody doing the same thing, it often means, and it depends, that you're really just looking and you're really sitting with an unmet need that not everyone sees. And
Especially,
often the demand is there, just the awareness might not be. And you can
yes.
do that through messaging and marketing. You can bring the awareness there.
Yes.
Yes.
Back then in 2020, 2021, the majority of my content was educational. I
Mm,
had to do a lot of heavy lifting, like
yeah.
the importance of having a solid curriculum, what it can do for your business when you're trying to scale,
Yeah.
but also, the impact of colonial narratives on your business and the
Yeah.
pressure that you're putting on yourself. And on top of that, if you're neurodivergent, this is how it's showing up for you in your business.
Yeah.
So the majority of my invitations for podcasts were towards those topics. Where
Mm.
now I come back and I'm like, oh, so everybody's aware of this? So I can just start the conversation not from the starting point, but just right in the middle of it.
You don't need to
This is
problem aware
amazing.
people about their neurodiversity anymore. I think that's
Yes.
the difference. You don't need to problem
Yeah.
awareness. Now they're very aware of the problem and they've already tried a bunch of things to solve it.
Yeah. And as a service provider, it's almost like a must exercise
Mhm.
to constantly be auditing the level of awareness that the market itself has developed
Absolutely.
without you even educating, right? Like, so that you can, okay, so this is already there. Like the market has already changed. They already know these things. Now I'm going to come right into this conversation with what I'm proposing to solve
Absolutely.
this.
Yeah. What this makes me think of, Mariana, was like, I remember in 2019, 2020, I was talking about how like first gen entrepreneurs need to be coached differently because I was like, there's no way. Like, I'm like, there's no way. I was so successful and so smart in all these ways. Why is this happening? And I stuck with it. And a lot of people weren't necessarily problem aware, but they're like, oh, well, you're like the only first gen coach that I know of. Now I think there's the awareness of there's privilege in entrepreneurship. There's trauma responses that come up in entrepreneurship. There's trauma responses that are very specific to the immigrant journey and having come from like escaping poverty and all the things and how that affects. So it's like, don't change up your song. Sometimes your education, the education in your content can help bridge that gap, but also the market is always shifting. But when the market shifts, who's the one they're going to go to say, you've been singing the same song this whole time? That is such a perfect example of that. I wanted to ask you, as we're kind of getting closer to wrapping up, like, tell me about hitting your 2024 goal in May and like what that looked like. And is anything else you want folks to know about how that was possible? And even if you wanted to share like what happened last week and like what that looked like for you as a service provider in
Mhm.
terms of the milestone that you hit like last week and then yeah, just hitting your 2024 goal.
Yeah. So remember, I told you that I set for myself a very random goal. I thought I'm gonna match my income from 2023 plus 30%. And if that comes from new clients, even
Yeah.
better.
Yes.
And I gave myself until the end of the year. So I was in no rush. to look at my numbers. Like, no, I look at my numbers, right? Like for the monthly thing, but not towards a goal, at least not yet. And last week, I'm going to ask for coaching for this. I still have that little thing of, how do I process this? Do I celebrate? Because it was a 20K sales week for me last week. Now, to give people context, because context is always important.
Yeah.
That 20K in my line of work, which is like curriculum design, is what 4 projects make. Because my sort of the average investment that a client does with me is 5K.
Yes.
I have my big clients for digital, huge academies. Yeah. They invest more, but the baseline is 5K. So that's we're talking about 4 projects. From those 4 projects, and this is for my service providers out there listening to this, the money is in the follow-up. Okay? We tend to give up. Because we don't like to practice patience. I'm talking to myself right now.
Why you have to follow up in the first place. It's almost like you have a story about what's happening with the client.
So I opened the week with 2 people saying yes from the week before. Because remember, I never pressure people. I always give them a week to think about. So I had sales calls the previous week. Monday, Tuesday, they come back to me. Yes, let's proceed. The very next day, I think it was the Wednesday or the Tuesday evening, a person that I was super excited to work with comes back from a sales call last summer.
What? You were thinking about it this whole time.
Summer 2023. And this is why I say the trick is in the follow-up. We had an amazing sales call. I was like, oh, I want to work with this client because I believe in the work that they are doing.
Oh my God.
Comes September and nothing solidifies. End of the year and nothing solidifies. So by the end of the year, I send an email saying something like, hey, I'm looking at my calendar for the first quarter of 2024. And I just wanted to let you know that I would still love to work with you. And if you would like to do that with me, if you're still on track for your course, just let me know because I want to make sure that I can have the time that your project deserves. So if you just let me know, I can block that timeline. And because I know my process back and forth, I know exactly how much I need to block.
Yes.
So they come back to me saying, I need to get some things settled and I'll come back to you.
Okay.
So the last exchange of communication was by the end of 2023.
Dang.
And I just stayed there. I was like, no, this is not over until it's over. This is not over until it's over. Yeah. So last week they come back saying, hey, let's move forward. When do we start?
Wow.
And I stood there with my phone in shock. I was like, what?
Because you weren't expecting that because you had the sales call the last week. And I remember there was wins because some of them were returning clients. There were new referrals, but the referrals told you they vetted you. And they were like, I looked up your website. I looked up your LinkedIn. So again, it's the cohesiveness around your messaging and you really speaking specifically and having that evidence. So you're like, okay, the referrals are great, but you still need to have something for people to vet you. So that was a win. You're like, this was a cold lead. And then this was out of the blue. I mean, it wasn't, but it just wasn't something that was on your radar for this month.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the other one that finally solidified, for the phase 2, this was also a project that started last year back in October. I did phase 1 of what I proposed because I always propose more phases than what they hire me for. Because you have to plant the seeds. When you're a service provider, you have to plant the seeds. You always have to be able to see the big picture and show them the possibilities of your collaboration together.
Yes. That makes sense.
I don't know if that's
not
the case
being
for
afraid
coaches,
to do that. It sounds like because instead of being like, no, but they just hired me to do this. It's like, no, but they also aren't able to ask for what they don't see yet.
Yes.
Which makes
So to be honest, when I did that project, I was so excited because it was like, oh my God, this project and this client is in my dream board. And then I heard nothing.
Mhm.
And I played the game, right? Like, hey, I'm still here. Like, let's be friends. No, nothing, nothing, nothing. And then last week they come back. Hey, by the way, let's move forward. And
And then
it goes to tell you that as a service provider, you really have to stick with your offers. Because if you imagine that I would be like jumping around, I would have lost 10K.
yeah, because 10K was from your messaging back then and what drew
Yes.
them in. So the same thing that because and this could be even if you hadn't had the sales call with them, because
Yes.
you start a customer journey from when they find out about you and you restart it every time you switch up what you're doing. Then they're like, well, I don't know about this. I was kind of down with that, but now you're sort of doing this. So it's like you just restart the customer journey, whether you had the sales call or not.
And you always plant doubt. Because
Yeah,
if you
because it's
repeat the
almost like
thing so
your own doubt
often,
in
it's
what
like,
you're
well,
doing.
then the other thing was not working.
Yes. Yeah. That
So for my fellow service providers out there, just you
Yeah.
have to stick to your guns, stick to your offer
Yeah.
until you have such an incredible track
Yeah.
that it's just gonna bring the leads to you.
That's so good. I want to know now. We had a conversation yesterday on yesterday's reclamation call around like time and space and like how important it is. Like you're bringing in all these clients around having like a day off where you're not like serving clients. Tell me what you were able to do to kind of facilitate that is coming from like the results that you're creating. Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people are afraid to make more money or bring in more clients because they're afraid they can't handle it, but that also creates options. So tell
Mm-hmm.
me a little bit about the what we called yesterday on yesterday's call, like sit your ass down Wednesdays, which essentially is like we all, especially because you're a mom as well of two,
Yeah.
of the importance of like part of growth is also having the space for yourself that you're not on or like serving clients and like how important that is. So tell me what are you now doing and what were you able to do?
Yes. So it's definitely difficult for me to create space in my calendar
Yeah.
because I feel that if my kids are at daycare or at school, it means that I need to be working.
Mm,
Like it needs, and again, this is colonial narratives, this is industrial heritage. You have to be productive in order to be valuable. So, one of the first things that we decided on, my husband and I, when things started picking up
yeah.
this year was to take some of that new income and pay one extra day of daycare for
Yeah.
the baby.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, the idea was I deserve to just be off the clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then things were picking up. So what did Mariana do? Oh, let's just schedule client calls because I have an extra day,
Right.
right? Okay. So then last week happens and I come to the reclamation weekly call and I talk and I celebrate with everyone. And then you ask like very like nonchalantly, like, how are you going to create space now? I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I should, right? I should.
Yeah.
So you are going to be very proud of me. I already scheduled my next hair appointment at the salon
Good.
on a Wednesday.
Yes. Hair appointment. Sit your ass down Wednesdays.
Mama's going to be and sit her ass down for a hair appointment.
Yeah. Oh my
Yes.
God. You're going to feel so good. I feel like you're just coming back to yourself. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because you lose so much of yourself. Oh my gosh. And it sounds so bad, but it's like you have kids, but then you feel like even after you've given birth, there's just a couple of years where you're just like, who was I before this? And then like you're a mom of two, so I don't know what that's like, but it's still like there is an element of like, how do I come back to myself? Like I have to exist in my own life too, because like in order for you to keep doing what you're doing, right? So I loved that. I love that you did that.
Yes. Yeah. So I am very excited about that. Also, our last call, I looked at my calendar and like I said, I already had some appointments that, productive Mariana scheduled in for Wednesdays, but I blocked that day.
Dr. Mariana.
Calendly,
Yeah.
Calendly is not gonna allow
We
people
all
to.
have that part where it was like the version of you that wants to say yes to everything and wants to like, oh, I got some space. I could do some more work. I could put in another client
Because
call.
you know how
Like,
some
how
people,
about?
yeah, you know how some people are like, yeah, the extrovert part of me said yes to the I don't have that extrovert part, but I have the productive Mariana. Productive Mariana thinks that she can handle 20 projects at a time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now I'm going to phase out those calls and they're not going to come back to my calendar
Mhm.
because as things look like, I
Yeah.
am not only going to, I mean, I already hit my goal in May,
Yes.
but the year that I stopped my business, I was at 6 figures. And I think we are on track to be back
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not putting pressure
Yeah.
because right now I'm at a place where, well, whatever comes next is cherry on top. I'm just here to serve. I'm here to have fun,
Hmm.
to enjoy the fact that my brain works again. I mean, after postpartum depression, I thought that I would not be able to synapse my synapses. Um,
Oh.
and synapses been synapsing now. So
Yeah.
I am so happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like the detachment, that's the thing is you can hold space for that to be like, okay, yeah, like we're on track to, surpass 6 figures, meet 6 figures. You can have the detachment to it, but still be in expectation or like opening up to it. And I think you've had enough surprises, like pleasant surprises, that you're just like, hey, I'm open to more surprises, because it absolutely can. And you have the support and you're held, and everyone is such a huge fan of yours as well. And I think that that's the other thing is sort of like, you were able to create this even after rebuilding your belief, that now it's like you've got this momentum and you have this other space on your calendar that's for you. So it's like we want to keep nurturing that ground. It's almost like, okay, this is, you're putting like fertilizer in the soil and all the things, and like this is what's going to continue feeding what you're doing, so that you actually can have fun, because it's a lot more fun to do your job when you're not doing it every single minute of every day, especially when you have kids. So
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I yes, I love this so much, Mariana. Honestly, like this is like a whole masterclass too for like the service provider folks who are going to listen to this on the podcast, about like just the wisdom and the perspective of someone who's been doing this for years, because I think that sometimes we can't see over the hump, or like if you're in a coaching space where you don't have other folks to talk to about that, and then you see the coaching space and it sets this unrealistic expectation sometimes of like what business can be like, and these spikes, that I think that like this grounded perspective is just like so necessary. And the fact that you contextualized your results as well is so important, because I think that I never want to create an expectation of like you're going to come in and like, there's work that you've done, and then you're able to magnify that in different ways depending on where you are. So thank you for just sharing everything with us. And we're going to tag you and like your accounts and all of that in the podcast episode. But yeah, is there anything else you want to say to just anyone that's listening who's a service provider, who maybe like is looking for a space to kind of help bring out like their genius, or just any other bits of advice that you would give a service provider?
Yes. If you're a service provider or a consultant that has a very like thought out method and process to deliver your consultancy services, one, you're not making things up. Like the space online is not catering to us. Most of the people hosting programs that talk about like growing your business have never delivered a service.
Yeah.
So they don't understand what it takes to close a project.
Yeah.
They don't understand that we don't get paid up in advance. Like our payments are attached to milestones that we are delivering. And that is very important. And with that, I want to say that in Reclamation, I have never felt pressure to change the way I operate my business. I have never felt that people didn't believe in the work that I'm doing. I have never felt the willingness of others to just rally around you when you are asking to borrow beliefs. I came into Reclamation without a single drop of self-trust, with the hopes that I could come back to myself. But I said it back in February. I said it in the sales call in December, put me in the room.
Yeah.
I said it back in February in the second call. I need everyone. I need Mariela. I need you to believe in me because I cannot believe in myself right now. And I say it now.
Yeah.
When as I'm celebrating the milestones that I'm hitting, I am very aware of the fact that yes, my brain works, and yes, I have a kick-ass offer and I know what I'm doing, and I wouldn't be able to do it without community.
Yeah. The mirrors that reflect it back, like all the time.
Yes.
And I think that's so important because I don't know that it's like natural for us to just sustain the same level of like self-belief and self-trust. And I think it's like, this is like almost like these interwoven like threads that hold each other up so that each individual person doesn't have to do that, because there's like the folks that are going to hold you up when you can't. And we do that for each other. So yes, I love this so much. Thank you, Mariana, for being with us and just for sharing your story. I'm like so happy that you're in the room. I feel like I say this all the time. I think that you shake up our way of thinking as well. And yes, I'm just like so grateful for you, and thank you again.
Thank you.